magical friends, today we will be working on our platform 9 3/4 brick wall made from a bed sheet and paint. It's quite a simple project and you don't need too many supplies. You just need the bed sheet, some red paint, a sponge, maybe gloves if you want, depending on what type of paint you're using. You'll need some scissors, a ruler. I'm just using a smaller bed sheet because I'm going to make a back piece insert there for my bookcase because the back panel is missing and it doesn't look very good. So I want to make it look a little more Harry Potter-ish. We will take some measurements, cut the bed sheet down so it fits the bookcase, and we will get right to it. You're going to need a bed sheet, a curtain, or a huge piece of fabric, whichever you have. I got this bed sheet at our local thrift shop for $2. You will need red paint and a sponge. I got these sponges at Dollar Tree, but most places carry sponges. If they don't have the size that you want, you can cut a sponge down fairly easily. I found the hard part was finding a sponge that actually has little holes in it, which sounds strange because most sponges you would think have that, but a lot of places had solid sponges now without the little holes in it. But I like the look the holes give when you put it on the wall. And then any red paint will work, fabric paint will work better, but anything that you have at home. A ruler here and scissors because I'm going to be cutting it down to fit the bookcase, but you don't have to cut the sheet. Depending on what size you need, you can just make the whole sheet into a brick wall, just depending on what you're using it for. First, I'm going to measure how much I'm going to need of the sheet for the insert on the back of my bookcase. It needs to be 36 inches by 72 inches. Just grab the Sharpie, but don't forget, not everyone's gonna have to measure it like I'm doing here. If you need it for a big wall, you can just use the whole sheet. We're just gonna cut out that line that I made with the Sharpie. Have it cut into two. We can start with the painting. Once you're all ready to go, you're going to make sure that there is a drop sheet behind the sheet that you will be painting because it will leach right through and stain and go onto the floor that you have or whatever you have underneath the sheet that you're working on. You're going to need your paint in a nice container that will fit your sponge easily and obviously your sponge. You're going to want to smooth the fabric out so that it's not too wrinkly. You're going to take your sponge, dip it in the paint, and then press it down on the fabric. And as you can see from there, I just left a little gap in between, about the width of a finger or a little bit more. It doesn't have to be accurate. You just want it to go so that the line is straight. Once you have all of that ready to go, you can start. Depending on what paint you're using, you might want to wear gloves. I'm not going to because this stuff washes off pretty easy. You're going to take the sponge. You're going to dip it in the paint. You're going to press it on the other side of your container. Get all the runny bits out. Then you're going to come over here and you're going to press it nice and firmly onto your wall. You might be able to get a couple of things out of each coat of paint, but just remember that the next ones after are going to be a little bit lighter than the one you started with. You're going to repeat that, going all the way across the top of your sheet. Back over top, and then you can re-dab it. So there, I've done my first row. I'm going to bring the camera over here so you can see, and I'm going to show you the next step because you can't have the brick going all one way. There, you can see how we've got the first row done. But if you look at my finished product here, you can see that I don't have the bricks lining up. I'm going to show you how I did that. Here's a close-up. You're going to take your sponge, you're going to dip it in the paint, you're going to brush off the excess. Now, because we are going to start the second row, you don't want the second row to line up. So you're going to center it underneath that gap there, and you're going to press down on it, and you're going to go up. And you're going to keep doing that across. A little bit more paint. Down. Okay, when you get to the end, see how there's this gap here? You're gonna put your sponge just over the edge of the sheet, and you're gonna press down just on the side where you want the paint to come off, and then it gives you a half brick. We're gonna go back over here and do the same thing where we started. Press down on half, and there's your half brick. Then it gives the look that the bricks keep going on either side, and now your gaps in between don't line up. You want them to look like an actual bricklayer laid them, because if they had done the gap straight up, the wall would fall over. You have to interlock your bricks. So by doing that and centering the second brick underneath the gap, it gives the illusion of a real brick. I would give it a full day to dry. Unless you live somewhere really warm, it's just going to take a while for the fabric to set. Today I'm going to start working on my bookcase that I have behind my shoulder right there on the floor. We're going to sand it down, we're going to prime it, and then we are going to paint it. I'm wanting to get it done so that I'm able to display all my Harry Potter stuff behind me while I'm doing my videos. You're going to want to use a 150 to 120 grit sandpaper. You can either use a hand sander or a sander that I have back there. You want to sand it, rough it all up, wipe off all the dust. Then you are going to prime it, and then you can paint it whatever color you want. I'm going to do a red and then a black color. So let's sanding, you're going to want to take a rag and you're going to want to wipe up all the extra dust and stuff that's all gross on around it so that the paint adheres to it pretty good. So you can see this bookcase is a laminate, and so you're going to need a good primer. You can ask at your local paint store which will be the best one for you. I've got one left over from my kitchen cabinets that I did a little while ago, so I'm going to use that for my base. So now that everything is sanded and wiped down, we're going to start with the primer. I've tinted my primer a red, so you're going to just get your brush, or if you want to use a roller, and you can brush your first coat of primer on, and then we'll move on to the color that we want to actually do, which is I'm going to do a black, or if you want to just do it whatever, white, whatever color you want, just start with your primer, and then you can move on. And if you're going to have it somewhere where it's going to get used a lot, I would recommend putting on a lacquer over top. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet, but we will see. So we're going to get to it right away here. As you can see, my back of my bookcase was already missing. You can take yours out or leave it, it's up to you, but I'm going to later show you how I made the bricks, and we're going to attach the brick sheet to the back because I don't have the back panels for the bookcase. There we go. First coat is done. Now you gotta let it dry so that it's completely hard and not gonna come off. Then we're gonna give it one more coat of the red, do a layer of the black. And it just depends. I might have to do 2 of the black as well, but I want it to be nice and covered. This morning we're gonna give it a second coat of primer with the red, and then a little later we will do another coat of the black. And hopefully it'll be finished, and then I can start decorating, which I'm really looking forward to down here. coat of primer is now done. It's starting to look nice and red. Later today I will paint it black and hopefully sand off a little bit of the black and give it a rustic look, and the red will hopefully peek through in certain spots. Now that we have it primed with the red, we are going to do the black. I'm hoping only to need one coat, but it might need 2 coats of the black. Then tomorrow, once it's dried, I'm going to give it a quick sand to make it a little bit roughed up so it has a weathered vintage look. After the first coat of black, it has done pretty much the look I wanted, where you can see the red coming through the dark. Look here. I'm gonna leave the front of it red, and then I'm just gonna take the sander and rough up the edges a little bit, and I think we'll be ready to attach the back on. You're gonna take your sander, whether it's the hand sander or the power sander, and you're just gonna run it just along the edge, just a little bit, not the middle because that'll scratch up the paint, but just the edge, just to take off a little bit of that paint and give the edging just a little bit of vintage. Finished painting your bookcase, we are going to install the backdrop that we made with the sheet and the bricks pattern on it. And to do that, you're going to need a stapler. You're going to start in the corner. So it's nice and even at the top. And you put in your first staple. And you're going to pull it over here. Give it a nice stretch, make sure it's not too high above. And staple it there. Now you're going to want to run staples along the top so that it's nice and tight. Then we're going to pull it so that it's down the side nice and tight as well. Don't want to leave any gaps. Then it will look wrinkly. Then pull it again. Make sure it's attached. Now, I've got a bit extra here because I didn't want to be too short. So I'm just going to fold that back. Use a couple staples just to hold it in place. You will not see this because it'll be against the wall. And there we have it. Our back piece is attached. Next, you'll take your shelves and you'll put them back. Here we have our finished bookcase. I really like how it turned out. I'm going to finish it up by putting all of my Harry Potter items on it. Now remember I said earlier if you wanted you could put a lacquer on it to make it a bit harder. I'm not going to do that on this one because I'm not too worried about it. It's just going to have some of my ornaments sitting on it and my collectibles. So I'm not too worried about it getting scratched up. But if you're going to use it as an actual bookcase, I recommend putting on a varnish. It'll give it a harder coat and so that it doesn't scratch. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw here, please hit the subscribe button.